And it says I'm live. I'm going to check and make sure, because God knows nothing ever goes right the first 5 minutes or so. Which, for those of you that have been emailing me and texting me and everything else about going live early, that's kind of the idea. All right, so let's get to the elephant in the room. F-bombs are armed and may be dropped. The 26th May San José shooting. Yay. Let's address that elephant first, after I get the chat back where I can see it. There we go. Okay. Yesterday there was a mass shooting in San Jose. No, it wasn't a mass shooting. It was a workplace shooting. Those are two completely different dynamics, right? And I'm just going to say this the way it is. The one thing has nothing to do with the other. We're comparing oranges and apples here. Yes, people were shot. Yes, people died. No, it's not the same thing. A workplace shooting is a type of shooting that occurs at a workplace and is usually involved with at least something resembling workplace stress. In this case, we don't know what it was, but we do know that there was something really, really wrong with that guy, right? Besides the fact that he torched his house. That's just a big fuck you. And if you've ever thought about a scenario like this, you thought about torching your house on the way out, all right? Let's just making sure it was actually out there. Everything should be working. All right. So yeah, if you've ever thought of a scenario like this, you've thought about torching your house on the way out. That's just part of the game. And by the way, a scenario like this includes leftists thinking, okay, this is it, I'm gone. I'm doing this thing. Right-wingers thinking, okay, I'm gone, I'm doing this thing. And everybody in between. People with no particularly strong leaning one way or the other, who decide that they're going to disappear, have thought about torching their houses on the way out. All right, so that's not even an issue. Why he did it is not entirely clear, but it's pretty obvious that this guy's mentally ill, and nothing on earth would have stopped him from doing something. It's as simple as that. But this is also no mandate's fault. I call Gavin Newsom no mandate because back when he was the running for re-election of San Francisco mayor, he got some sort of opposition where his opposition denied him a mandate. He has never forgiven them for that. And everything he's done is retaliation for exactly that. This was the 2002 mayoral re-election, in case you want to look it up. I know I happened to be on active duty out of Coast Guard Island at the time, Treasure Island at the time, and I would make the run into town for certain supplies, coffee supplies, and so I would take the bus because I didn't want to drive on San Francisco Bay Bridge. It's as simple as that. Don't want to deal with these people. Let somebody else deal with them, right? I'm reading a newspaper where whoever it was that published this newspaper is bragging about they denied him his mandate. 2 months later, he illegally ordered the city clerk to start issuing marriage certificates for the city of San Francisco. One elected official cannot order another elected official to do much of anything. Why she acquiesced, I do not know, but whatever. And that was actually the moment when the culture war really started. This was the tar and feathers moment. For those of you that don't know, the American Civil War didn't start at Fort Sumter. It had started almost, actually at least a year earlier, when tax collectors were being tarred and feathered. That's when Washington started sending troops down into the South to enforce the laws. Make sure that's working. Oh, I am so sorry. Hey, Luke. The chat stream is not exactly working normally today. Very abnormally, in fact, because I know that 5-minute warning was like a minute late, and Luke was before that. So I apologize, Luke. That was no disrespect intended. Where was I? The American Civil War, the tar and featherings happened, and then in that's Charleston, South Carolina, at Fort Sumter, the day before the shelling began, the tax collector was about to be tarred and feathered again, and there was some other accusations not related specifically to his tax collection activities, the thing he was being paid. He accused of diddling a little girl. Whether it's true or not, that's what the accusation was. People were very, very mad and upset, and they were going to lesson. Tar and feathers, not some silly little game. That's a very serious thing. It's meant to kill very slowly, and it often does. Gavin ordering the city clerk to issue marriage certificates, knowing that they were supported by the court and therefore not really legal, started the culture war that we're all caught up in. From the chat, Luke is like way too close to one of those front lines. I'm close enough that I've seen this. There's a couple other people that routinely are here who have also been too close to those front lines. Okay, so that's my rant about No Mandate's nickname. No Mandate and those like him are pushing gun control in California to the point where it is becoming an absurdity. I'm going to be going over the subject just coincidentally later. You notice my big buddy here is gone. Well, yeah, my big buddy is actually in California right now getting some modifications. Under California law, you can not have a firearm with a detachable magazine. I go into California once a month. Okay, well, I have to leave my AR at home. I'm okay with that, but I don't really like it. So I approached one of the gun shops up by the lake house. They said, hey, yeah, we could do that for you. It'll be $65, and we're going to have to hold it for a week. Okay. Well, today is a week. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to be picking it up. I'm actually taking time off of work to do this. Where was I going with this? Oh, yes. That's the kind of absurdities that California law has. Washington state law is even more absurd. I don't want to talk about that right now. The requirements to carry a firearm when I was growing up in California, open carry, unloaded open carry was fine. And there was some really weird interpretation of the law that said you had a mag in the gun, but the gun was open and there's no round in the chamber, that was fine. But if you had if you had it closed, even if there was no round in the chamber, it was not okay. These are the kinds of absurdities that existed back then, so brace yourself. The new absurdities are... Okay. First of all, to carry in California, you have to have a California-issued concealed carry permit. Second, you cannot carry open. And third of all, California does not recognize out-of concealed carry permits, does not issue out-of-state carry permits. So to get a concealed carry, to carry a firearm in California, you have to carry it concealed and be a resident of the state of California. Now that's a flagrant violation of the Second Amendment. It's a flagrant violation of the Interstate Act, which is not an amendment to the Constitution. That's part of the original Constitution. And it's a flagrant violation of the Fifth Amendment. By not carrying or carrying concealed or whatever, you have to, by definition, be declaring that you're not a state resident. I don't even know how they came up with this scam, but it is a scam. To get a concealed carry permit in California, first of all, each county is allowed to come up with their own little requirements. Second of all, it's basically not going to happen. Even the county where I grew up, it's not going to happen right now because they're afraid they're coming down and crushing the shit out of them. Riverside County got the shit spanked out of them. It was about 5 years ago, where they had a requirement for show cause. Okay, well, the Supreme Court said no. The Ninth Circuit said no, that's not a legal requirement. Riverside County backed down. The state of California decided they were going to pick it up on their own initiative. Last I heard, that was still working its way through the system. But San Jose and the entire Bay Area is exactly the same way. You're not going to get it unless you can show a reason why you need a concealed carry permit. Well, I can't carry a gun in any other way is not a good enough reason. Being an out-of-state resident, you can't carry at all. But if you are a California state resident and an illegal alien, you can get a concealed carry permit. Does this even begin to make sense? It gets worse. Because nobody basically in San Jose can get a concealed carry permit. Nobody could carry a gun while they were at work. And now a mental case got his hands illegally on a firearm and did what he did. I would say that this is an unfortunate thing, except it's not unfortunate. Right? If you stand out in the middle of the road enough times, you know sooner or later you're going to get hit. It's going to happen. You don't then get to claim that you're the victim of violence because you got hit while standing in the middle of the road. Because that analogy doesn't work with certain types of people. You can't go and rob banks and then when the cops come, claim to be a victim of a shooting, of a police shooting, because I wasn't, I wasn't robbing a bank at the time. No, 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 no. You've already demonstrated a propensity for using violence. Now the cops have come to find you, and you're trying to claim that, no, it wasn't happening at the time. That's not how it works. Gavin Newsom and the rest of the gun grabbers, and I know this to be true because remember, I used to be there, knew that sooner or later these rules would lead to this exact situation, right? Even back when I was a gun control supporter, all, but the NRA was warning us that sooner or later somebody would recognize the scenario for what it is and exploit it. And they did. This is exactly the scenario that Gavin wanted. Now, flag on the play. Back when I was a gun control supporter, I understood that, yes, that's going to happen, and we need to deal with that fact when it happens. I also knew that the only way it would ever work is a total gun ban and such draconian punishments that no sane person would ever attempt to break these laws. And that meant the death penalty only. None of this 20 years in prison shit, right? None of this life without possibility of parole shit. Because then you could always go back to the court and say, Your Honor, this punishment does not fit the crime, Eighth Amendment, and you got to release me. That was happening back then, right? It had happened for the death penalty itself. Charles Manson was the Charles Manson was benefited by somebody saying the death penalty is cruel and unusual and needs to be abolished. A court somewhere saying, "Oh yeah, sure, you're right," and therefore this cannot be. You can't execute anybody. Charles Manson had, and because it hadn't been carried out in a timely fashion, because he was appealing everything, including the verbiage spelling of is, they didn't execute him. By the time this appeal to the death penalty passed, he hadn't been executed. His death sentence was commuted to life without possibility of parole, and he spent the rest of his life in prison appealing that. Even when he died, he had had something like 8 parole hearings. I understood a death sentence for possession of anything related to firearms. The only way it would work, and that would never really happen. I also understood that these gun bans would inevitably lead somebody somewhere to do something, kind of like this. And the left just said, well, we're going to ban all the guns and the pool will be dried up. Even I understood this was bullshit. There had just been this huge arrest of a Chinese defense contractor, is the word that keeps getting used. I'm not sure exactly how they mean that word, for trying to smuggle a tank into the United States. Now, I want to lean into this one a whole lot. This contractor was approached by somebody posing as a gang member. Excuse me. Oh, excuse me. He wanted to get 1,000 AK-47s. Not the civilian version, but the actual military version with the automatic, at least, capability. This guy was not only willing to sell him that, he was willing to sell him rocket launchers. I want to say RPG-7s, and no, that's the Russian equivalent that they based it on. And then someone somewhere had this crazy idea about saying, hey, let's ask him for a tank. And he was going to do it. That's when the investigation was shut down. About the same time, there was a certain gentleman named Leonid Feinberg. This guy's such a big deal that I remember his name. Most of y'all don't remember his name, but you'll remember the name Tarzan. He's a Russian with strong connections to the Russian mob. He was approached to sell guns to another group. At some point, and don't even ask me how somebody thought to ask this question, but somebody asked, can we get a submarine? And in his very self-serving interview on 60 Minutes, Feinberg says, I looked at it, I don't know about that, but I'll ask. Anyway, I waited a few days, and then they called me back and said, with or without missiles. It was, the with or without missiles part, that happened. Whether he really was so reluctant to get them a submarine, that's another question entirely, but we'll talk about that some other time. It was the with or without missiles part that shut that investigation down. That's when everybody said, wait a second, this has gone too far. We need to stop this. Bear in mind that this is 1990s Russia. Things were very different at the time, and they're not much better now, but they are a little bit better. So here we are today. The San Jose had a history of schizophrenia, bipolar, self-medicating. That's two parts of current federal law, not Davis law. Forget about that. It's two parts of current federal law that says he should not have been able to buy a gun. He got one anyways. Where did he get it? I don't know. But I know he got them anyways. And it's not like he couldn't have made it himself. That might be part of the reason he torched the house. He didn't want them, the investigators, to see how he got the guns. I want to lean into that one a little bit. There's at least one really crystal clear example of somebody who built a MAC-10 from, quote, total trash. Yellow flag on the play. He says that he took the gun and tried it out and it worked. I think he's full of shit. I don't think his gun worked. I don't think he's as smart as he thinks. But I have since learned that the ATF, at the very least, thought, yeah, he's as smart as he thinks he is because he's gone to prison. The only thing you'll learn from this little bit of diatribe is if you're not allowed to have a gun, build it yourself and don't tell anyone. And just because you're crazy does not necessarily mean you're completely out there. You know how many crazy people have guns? Like a third of them at least, probably closer to a half. For those of you that were here, you know that indigent or homeless people have a an affirmative defense to Dataslav, to mandatory carry, just have to go in and say, Your Honor, I am homeless, and here's the proof. And with grace of God, go, but don't carry a gun. Don't get caught with a gun until you're no longer homeless. About half of all homeless have guns and knives and sharp, pointy things of every sort. The gun that I surrendered when I was living back in Sacramento, I bought it off a homeless guy down off of Richards Boulevard. And I probably saved his life, but I still got it off of him. So there you go. Gavin knew all along that his precious gun control would not work, never work, but he was depending on it to make sure that he could control the narrative. San Jose is an absolutely direct result of these policies that have never, ever worked. Gun control doesn't work. People died as a result of it this time. All right. Now, I'm not being a dick, guys. I'm just to make sure this is actually streaming. I'm starting to form some doubts. Everything says yes. Five, four, three, two. So if you hear a little bit of noise in the background, 5, 4. Well, it can't stream to my phone if it's not streaming, so that's a good sign. All right, so in the description I say that this was second-degree murder. Yeah, it is. I cannot discuss who I am personally. I can't discuss my personal self. Can't tell you my name. And even saying that I live near Reno is kind of pushing the envelope a lot. Because somebody tracked me down 4 years ago? About 4 years ago now. Off of a single photograph. It was me in uniform, and there was some things that I could have done better with that photograph before I put it out there, but okay, it is what it is. I didn't even think about it. About a month or so later, somebody comes knocking at my door. Well, this wasn't knocking, he was trying to pick the lock. And I startled the hell out of him by opening the door. It started by me actually hitting him with the door because I didn't realize he was there. And I'm coming out to see what the hell's going on out there. And then it escalated from there. At first, everything's fine. You know, the sheriffs come out, they arrest him. You know, residential burglary, armed residential burglary. This he's toast. All right. And his butter is down. A couple of days later, the deputy comes back and says, hey, what's up with this photograph? What photograph? She shows it to me and reveals that he tracked me down with a reverse image search. Oops. I had accidentally doxed myself. I don't know how he got the picture. I don't care. But he did track me down with that information. And he was going to come and beat me up or kill me or something, right? Intellectually, I know he potentially could have. I think all he really wanted to do was get in and intimidate me, tell me to stop talking, and then I would have shot him instead. Um, the the sheriffs in question weren't quite as sympathetic to my situation, though. They felt that this was creating a dangerous circumstance. If you have a beef with somebody and you tell them, come on down and we'll talk about it at my place, and they walk in your door and you shoot them, that's first degree murder, right? Don't do that. If you can convince the DA or the judge or the jury that your intention was just to discuss the matter, or you suggested to them that you could meet and let's see what happens, you might get away with second degree murder, right? That was the opinion of the sheriffs when my case came down. They didn't feel that I had deliberately done anything, but because I let that information out, they were a little less sympathetic to my position. You cannot create a dangerous circumstance and then pretend that you're strictly the victim. You also cannot walk into a situation you know is dangerous, right? I tell you, you don't like me, and I tell you, why don't you come on down and we'll talk about that. And you walk in with the gun out, that's also bare minimum second degree murder. Even if you say, I thought we were just going to talk, I know he's angry, I thought we were just going to talk. If they don't buy that you thought you were just going to talk, you're toast. Gavin Newsom created a dangerous circumstance with San Jose. He knew what was going to happen, and he let it happen anyways. This is not an unforeseeable consequence. This is a specifically foreseeable consequence because it's been said so many times that it's embarrassing to think about it at this point. I knew about it back in the 90s. How does Gavin not know it now? It's not like it didn't happen before. It happened at the Garlic Festival. I want to say that was last year, but it might have been before that. It happened at Columbine, which was my wake-up call. It happened, where else? It happened down in Texas, the Lubby shooting, because Lubby's was a public place, so the guns were banned in a public place at the time. It's not like there's been nothing but warnings. How many mass shootings happen in a gun store or in a police station? As far as I can tell, there's two. Both of them were anti-cop shootings at a police station, one of which didn't even result in any victims, right? That's the really, really weird one. Where was the hell was that? The guy bought an armored van, drove up to a police station, and just opened fire. And the cops were fine as long as they didn't go outside the building. This guy was still out there. They had to deal with him sooner or later, so they worked their way around and took him out some other way that they're not discussing, and I understand. The other one was also a police station. I don't even know anything about how that one. For gun stores, I can only say that there's been one shooting at a gun store that left two dead. It was dispute over the over gunsmithing. Oh, okay. That was a hell of an escalation. I've spent a lot of time trying to find out the whole story there because there's just something wrong with that whole story. I'm not buying the story that we're being given. Um, that's it. Places where you know people have guns don't get shot up. What is that? Places where you know people don't have guns, that's where people get shot up. And there's a really great example of how that doesn't always work out the way you planned. Clackamas Town Center, 2015, excuse me, is officially a gun-free zone. There's signs outside the building that say this is a gun-free zone. One guy just sort of ignored that sign and took his gun in with him. He was an off-duty security guard. Met his friend up on the mess deck. And about a half an hour later, some guy who also ignored the signs with a stolen AR here came bursting through the building, shooting as he went. Well, then he ran into Nick Melly, the off-duty security guard I might have just mentioned. And that was pretty much the end of his plans. Went into a ladder well and did something not allowed to say in a live stream, but he doesn't have any problems anymore. You know what I mean? Because Nick didn't actually fire a shot, certain parties are trying to say, oh, that didn't happen. He didn't end it. Whatever. No, he ended it because he was there. And he fucked up this guy's plan so badly that he didn't know what else to do, and he snapped. Gun-free zones where there's a gun present that you didn't know about as a mass shooter tends to end a problem. There's actually an even better example before that. Dr. J. Silverman? I believe it's Silverman or Silverstein. He was a psychologist working for a hospital in Pittsburgh. I can't remember the name. If any of you do remember, drop it in the chat and I'll mention it later. He had a patient who was mentally unstable. The guy is really wacko. I've learned a little bit about him since then. He does not need to be in public under any circumstances. He was also being considered for a possible very, very long prison sentence. Being declared competent was very important to this guy, and Dr. Silverman was not about to do it. The guy brought a gun with him to this meeting because he kind of got a feeling that this was headed that direction. When Dr. Silverman said something to the effect of, I'm recommending that you be locked up, he pulled the gun out, shot his social worker, shot Dr. Silverman, who took his own gun out in a hospital in the 90s. You know, when it was so much of a gun-free zone that you don't even talk about the word there. Dr. Silverman had a feeling that this might happen too, took his gun out of his own briefcase, and fired a couple shots back. That was enough to get this guy to thinking, I need to go somewhere else. He was caught alive, and he was caught with what the police called a hit list. At least a dozen people that he intended to kill before his plans ended. His plans were totally blown up. Dr. Silverman shot back. The hospital in the weeks after declared that, no, we're not going to fire Dr. Silverman over this. That guy walked into what he thought was a gun-free zone with a gun, with the intention of killing a lot of people, and he did manage to kill one person. And that will continue to happen long after mandatory cases. The first person will have, have a tendency to be significantly disadvantaged by definition. You didn't know it was coming until it came. I'm 90% sure after the fourth mass shooting attempt, once man passes, that first victim will have about a 50% chance of survival, because would-be shooters know I can only take one shot at this guy before I have to move on to everybody else who might have a gun. And then I can come back and start executing people afterwards. Well, no, that's not the way it's going to end up working. By the third, fourth would-be victim, bullets are coming the other direction too. Tracers work both ways, as the expression goes. All right, 37 minutes in. Gun control does not work, and the people pushing this agenda know it. Continuing to force it to become policy is second-degree murder. You're setting up a situation with the intention that sooner or later something will happen. Not the difference that it could. At this point, it is the intention. You cannot say that I'm going to drive through a crowd with no intention of hitting people. And that is exactly the appropriate analogy. Thanks. All right. Next up, congratulations to Texas. I did not think this was going to happen, because remember, I'm old enough to remember when guns were not allowed into public conveyances in Texas, like lobbies. And it's taken 30 years now? About 30 years. But Texas has made a complete 180. They passed constitutional carry. First of all, what is constitutional carry? That is the idea that the Constitution says X, so we're going to go with this X. We're going to make the restrictions as small as we can from there. Now, some states, constitutional carry means just that. You can conceal carry without a permit. You can open carry without a permit. And if it's not a federal law, it's not a state law either. I know Georgia's that way. Georgia's barely federal law. You have what is currently defined as a machine gun in Georgia. They're not actually going to come looking for you, or at least not very hard. And you're probably going to walk away with a misdemeanor if you don't fight them. This. I'm going to go back to the Mac 10 example. That guy had been in Georgia with that particular gun, and they tracked him down and said, we need to talk to you about your gun. Yeah, I knew you were coming. It's in my locker, or it's under my rack, or whatever. Go ahead and take it. The state of Georgia will probably not actually prosecute you for the felony. They will let you walk with a very serious misdemeanor. You might do some time, but not that much time. Fortunately, that's also a federal law, and the feds heard about this, and they were a little less sympathetic, or a lot less sympathetic, to be more precise. And he's in some real trouble. Also, I don't think he was in Georgia. I don't remember what state he did say he was in, though. Anyway, My understanding of Texas law is that it is constitutional all the way. They will continue to enforce federal law, but no concealed carry permits are required anymore. Out of state can carry. California or Texas has done exactly the opposite of what California did. Oh, and there's no reason requirement. You're not even asked. Now, why do you think you need a gun? You're not asked. It's according to a friend of mine, that block of the questionnaire has been removed. I mean, me, mandatory carry himself, would think you might at least want to state a reason, even if to comply with the law or to exceed the requirements of the law is your whole reason. I know there's certain counties where you cannot put that, in California at least. You cannot put to comply with the law. You have to actually say, I carry lots of cash, I'm a security guard, I have a restraining order against both of my exes. Whatever your reason for thinking you need one is, um, sorry about that, folks. The neighbors, my neighbors, are homeless. Yay. Anyway, where was I? Texas has done the exact opposite. They removed the reason block, even. Not that you needed to fill out the form anyways, because you don't need it anymore. A limited version of constitutional carry is in Dataslav. It says the states can set their concealed carry permit or concealed carry requirements. That's it. That's the authority they still have. And even then, they don't have a whole lot of it. They have, it has to be reasonable and relative to the other states. I can foresee it, a state like New Jersey, Hawaii, New York, and California, and Washington and Oregon, trying to say, well, the requirements that we're going to set are. And I'm really waiting for that because I know they're going to do it. I know they're going to exploit that loophole. And I'm just going to have to go into court and say, Your Honor, I swear and affirm that no, this is not reasonable standards. To short circuit that process a little bit, I already wrote into into Dataslav. Insurance is not a requirement. It's a requirement. I'm going to double down on that a little bit. If it were up to me, concealed carry gun self-defense insurance would actually be illegal. My partner hates that idea. Everybody else that I have ever mentioned this to has hated that idea. Okay, I don't care. I also wrote into Dataslav that you can't be prosecuted, you can't be sued. What's the problem? Why do you need insurance now? Okay. But congratulations either way on Texas joining the free world. The last I heard, Florida was also working on that. Sorry, guys, I am really not ignoring. Little by little, more and more states are joining the free world. Hawaii, Washington, Oregon, California, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania will be the last holdouts. These people don't have a mind to speak of. It is what it is. Once status law passes, they won't have a choice. Congratulations. Also, stand your ground. It's not even stand your ground in constitutional carry. It's duty to retreat. As two separate concepts. It's one concept. I'm going to go over it later. That says if you're not doing something you should be not doing, I have no obligation to give way. Okay. Wuhan funding issues. All right, this is not a secret. Everybody knows that COVID is a real thing. If you do not believe that it was potentially a extinction level event back in January of last year, you need to catch up to the news. I don't mean CNN, I mean literally everybody else. Back in January of last year, it was a legitimately dangerous thing. February, it was a legitimately dangerous thing. When it hit and when the lockdown, they said 14 days to flatten the curve, 2 weeks. I'm sitting there, it's like 2 in the morning, and I'm saying, yeah, right, 2 months. This is going to take 2 months. Well, we're coming up on, we've just passed a year now, and it's pretty obvious by now that not what their plans. And it gets worse, because I know this stream is going to get flagged for what I'm about to say. It has since come out that not only was a lot of money given to China that went to the lab, but that there are certain parties, certain people involved who should have been not involved. I don't care, right? Yes, Dr. Fauci has a lot of explaining to do, much more than I think most people understand. Even people who have been on that bandwagon of Fauci for the last year, even people like me who have been on that, fuck you, Fauci, bandwagon for the last 6 months. The virus didn't start in Wuhan. It's as simple as that. It was released, it was deployed in Wuhan as a very convenient way of hiding the real source. Now, I know some people are saying, well, people got sick before the first declared case. Okay, so some people got sick. So what? That means it got deployed a little bit earlier than we thought. But they were in the lab. That doesn't prove anything. It means they got sick. Now, did they get the virus? I don't know. Maybe. Did they get what eventually would become known as COVID-19? Maybe. I don't know. It's possible. It's just as possible they got the flu. No idea. Doesn't even matter. This money that was given to the lab needs to be much more thoroughly explained. No question or doubt about it. But then again, all money that's given to another country, especially one we're not really friendly with, needs to be completely explained. Um, sorry, lost my train of thought again. Um, all that said, COVID didn't come China. It passed through China, right? I continue to believe that it was maliciously and deliberately engineered in Iran, and that it was released or deployed in China either to damage China itself, which is a possibility, or as a convenient decoy for where it really came from. I'm beginning to think that the second is much more likely. Much easier to believe that a Chinese lab was working on this virus and it got out accidentally than it is to believe that China's buddy Iran developed this virus, because there are people that will actually tell you Iran doesn't have those capabilities. Yes, they do. They have at least 2 facilities that are acknowledged to have these capabilities. Not that you need a facility with those capabilities with the kind of people that run that country, but they have those capabilities. Nobody wants to believe is capable of this, and that is a very unfortunate fact. That is a criminal level of failure to think. If Fixed Bayonets was on screen with me, and this is on me, if Fixed Bayonets was here, she'd be saying something that would get the stream shut down. A very, very bad word by YouTube standards, anyways. Racial slur. I'm gonna lean into this a little bit. Even think about this. I didn't think about this subject at all until late January 2020, excuse me. I knew this thing was coming down out of China. I thought it was under control. Most of us did, right? Most of us thought the Wuhan virus was under control. It was going to burn itself out here relatively quickly. And Hubei province virus was going to burn itself out here and everything would be okay. Then Fixed Bayonets calls me up and says, "Did you hear about?" Well, yeah. Doesn't it seem strange that Iran and China had joint naval exercises just a few months earlier? Oh, okay, that's very interesting. And then she told me for like the 5 millionth time the story of the bar. And I said, okay, I get it. The story about who can and cannot fly planes. Okay, I get it. What are you thinking? That's when she told me her theory. This was actually her theory to begin with. And it wasn't even her theory, it was just is it possible? I took that and I've run a couple miles with it. She's actually backed down a little bit. Well, They wouldn't do it if they knew they'd be destroyed in the process. Yes, actually, they would do it if they knew they'd be destroyed in the process. They don't care. Well, this, well, that. She's sitting there trying to mitigate how much of a crime this is. Oh, fuck you, Rich. You know, and I know just how psychopathic they are, and you're actually going to try to give them a defense? I say this partially so, well, hold on to that thought for a second. Joe Biden shut down the investigation into Wuhan, but he swore he's going to reopen it under his control. What Joe Biden is so afraid of, so absolutely terrified of, is that it'll come out that China is not the source of COVID-19, that they didn't develop this virus in a lab or any other way, and worse still, that it'll come out that yes, it is a man-made thing. It is not a natural evolution thing, and then we'll all have to go looking for another suspect. The last thing Joe wants you to do is look at the money trail from Tehran to his own desk. It'll lead into this a whole lot. George Soros has been caught taking money from Iran. Now, he did it through a front company, a NIAC. Yeah, I don't know what that stands for. But it's basically an Iranian intelligence agency front company. It's how they launder the money that they use to get people to do the things they want. Like on the play, US does it, Russia does it, Britain does it, Canada does it, Mexico does it. Right? Everybody does it. Sometimes they get caught. You know, for the US, oh, what was it? It was a Xerox, excuse me, a photocopier company, right? We got caught doing it because the lady who was supposed to service that equipment was sick one day, couldn't make it in, so somebody else came in for her, and he noticed something that didn't look right, and everything fell apart from there. Sometimes people get caught. This was one of the cases where somebody got caught. Giving money to George Soros was probably a bad idea. George Soros caught giving money to Antifa. Point, he's never even tried to hide it. Not very well, anyway. He's well known to be giving money to BLM. He's not really trying to hide it that hard. It's not like he puts it up on his personal website, but yeah, he's not even trying to hide it in any meaningful way. So, gee, where does money seem to be coming from? I don't know. Where could George Soros be getting billions of dollars of funding to support Antifa and BLM and other organizations like the DNC? He's at least smart enough to launder it a little bit more before it goes into DNC's funds. I believe it's his Open World Initiative. I believe that's the name of the organization. So it goes from him to some other person who actually controls the money and can say, yes, it's going to go here. No, it's not going to go there. Whatever. But at the end of the day, yes, he knew where it was going and he understood who it was going to or where it came from. And where it came from, what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to undermine the most important, most dangerous enemy to Iran, which is the United States. At the end of the day, the United States is that big, ugly guy down the corner. Everybody knows you don't fuck with him, and he won't fuck with you. But if you can make him not want to fight, like turning his electricity off or cutting his gas off or something else, or just make him afraid to jump up, make him not want to jump up, might not jump up. And then you can go around doing all the little bullshit games that you do, like breaking into somebody's house, whatever else it is that you're trying to get away with. That's from my Nations as a Neighborhood rant that I really need to get around to. Iran knows if they can make the U.S. a little less willing to deal with their bullshit, they can get away with things like funding terrorists in the UK, funding terrorists in France, funding terrorists in Saudi Arabia. Oh, yes. That's right, isn't it? For those of you that haven't, they have the memory more than a goldfish. Donald Trump secured a treaty between Saudi Arabia and Israel before he left office that said, we're going to play nice together. If for no other reason than the U.S. wants us to play nice together, a little bit more than that. Saudi Arabia knew that they had a problem not dissimilar to the problem Israel was dealing with. Terrorism, Iranian-funded terrorism. Now, whether Saudi Arabia will ever come out and say it or not, I don't know. Maybe they already have, and I just don't know about it. But they do have that problem. And now, because they're not going to be squabbling with Israel over non-things, they can focus a lot more attention on that internal problem and root out the Osama-ists. Osama bin Laden was not an isolated example. There's a lot of people there that did his idea. Now, his family actually had a bounty out for his head. There are other people that wanted, that what he believed in, that gave him money and gave him other aid. Now that he's dead, his daughter is getting, I believe it's his daughter, getting that support in his name, in his memory. And those organizations are being aided by Iran. Same way that they aided ISIS when they were rampaging through Iraq. Now, I know somebody's going to say, no, that's not possible. There's Sunni and the other Shiite. And I always get the two backwards. I admit it. I don't care. Iran, at the very least, has a long history of being willing to work with opposition Muslims towards a common goal. They aided and abetted Muslim Brotherhood, which was opposition, I believe, Sunni, towards overthrowing, really, Egypt after the Arab Spring. That didn't work out so well for them. Muslim Brotherhood ended up on the wrong side of M240s and M16s. Maybe they do still have AKs there. The Egyptian army wasn't playing this game. They supported ISIS, despite the fact that ISIS is Sunni, because it would clear the way for Iraq or Iran's eventual takeover. Clear out anything resembling opposition through a proxy army, then clear out the proxy army, repopulate the area with people that are more friendly to Iran's position, and it's a soft takeover. Also, ISIS made the big mistake of not paying the piper. They owed Iran a lot of money, and they weren't paying all of a sudden by shipping oil to Iran, where Iran could then sell it. That's a bad idea, especially with that country. Iran, aka Persia, has a very, very well documented history that if you owe them money, they're going to come collect one way or another. That is literally the circumstances under which the Battle of Thermopylae happened. Thermopylae as in 300. The, God damn it. One of the Grecian kings had gotten a lot from Persia in his takeover attempt that, honestly, I can't tell you if his takeover attempt was successful or a failure. Either way, Persia wanted their money back. And their plan was to go invade the city and tax it to death until the money was repaid, and probably because they could never really hold this city. And the Spartans said, no, you're not coming here. As a matter of fact, the Spartans didn't have to interfere. Spartan was not the country, the city-state. They owed the money. Persia reached out to them for allies. Sparta said no, rather dramatically. It's actually bigger than Leonidas saying, "This is Sparta," and kicking the messenger down the well. He didn't kick the man down the well, but he said something that was even more grandiose and then killed the messenger and sent somebody back with the rest of the statement. Xerxes didn't like that at all. That's Iran. That's really Iran. They will kill you if you owe them money. ISIS made the mistake of not paying. Just like whatever the hell the city was that owed Persia money, that Persia turned to Sparta and said, "Hey, help us out with this problem. We'll make your problems a little bit easier." And Sparta said, "Very no." All ties carry insofar as there is a big one coming, a big terror attack. We're looking at a couple 100,000 dead if Iran gets what they want. And they're probably going to get it unless we're able to stop it when it starts. Now, question has come up, would Europe possibly be targeted? Yeah, that's a possibility. But targeting all of Europe, or even generally Europe, would create certain logistical issues, timing issues, really, versus the US, because it's literally night and day difference between the two. Excuse me. There's only about 3 or 4 hours when the sun shines on Europe and North America at the same time. That's a big problem across so many time zones. And it doesn't shine on all of North America or all of Europe and the other any of the other at the same time. That there is no such time zone. It's going to be a long series of mass shootings, and it is coming. I am convinced of this even more now than I was 6 months ago, a couple of years ago. As Joe Biden took office in very, very short order, there were, quote, 11 Iranians detained at the U.S.-Mexican border. You know, the exact same place where I said they would be detained. Granted, I said Nogales because that's the easiest point to get into. Now, Nogales I'm most familiar with. It's not necessarily easy or hard, it's just the one I'm most familiar with. These were 11 over different places, but all within about a 48-hour period. That's just the ones they caught. Not to be an ass about it, but I think those 11 were more designated decoys than anything else. That is the reason why we need mandatory carry. And I'm going to say this right here and now. This thing is coming. It's going to happen probably within right about a year from now. 6 to 9 months. When it happens, I'm going to say, I told you so. That it was an inevitability. Okay. Happen years from now, I'm still going to say, I told you so. I was off by the timing. Oh, well. When it happens, like I said, I'm going to say, I told you so. And worse still is that Datislav will not have been passed by then. There's going to be a body count into the 6-digit zone, 5-digit zone bare minimum. And I mean upper 90,000, 75, 90. That's up. 75,000 is my bare minimum. Remember, we're talking about over 100 cities, just in the US, over 100 cities, about 100 cities. Divide that by 75,000, you only got about 750. Two-man team running around town, doing whatever the hell they feel like. Oh yeah, by the way, split that in two. Well, let's round that off to 350. Two-man team running around town, doing whatever the hell they are doing. If they can't get 350 each, they're really, either they're not trying or somebody got goddamn lucky. Okay. The reason we need mandatory carry is COVID. And the people behind it, the people actually behind it, how they've covered that, and how Joe Biden is helping them to cover their tracks. It's so easy to blame China. It's kind of the weird thing. You have to be racist to blame China. All right? Here's my racist. It's saying that China is both smart enough to do this and too stupid to control it at the same time. Pick a story, right? You can't be smart enough to create a super virus and then too stupid to know how to control it at the same time. That's not the way it is. To say nothing of these shit posts about people saying, they were selling back door. You're literally saying that they are too stupid to understand that this bat meat was dangerous to all. Come on, guys, pick a story. it's a whole lot easier to believe that Iran is more than just smart enough to understand how to do this, but how to deploy it effectively. But then, oh yeah, Iranians, they're not, they're too stupid to do this at all. No, they're not. All right, they're really smarter than the people that watch this and the host combined. Yeah, the people in Iran that run that country are probably smarter than me by a long stretch. I never, ever suggest that they're stupid. And I don't know why anybody else does. And I've had this said to my face by one of my uncles. Oh, Iran is too stupid to do that. No, they're not. I'm so disappointed about that. All right. So I'm at an hour and 15 minutes. It doesn't seem like anybody's here except me. Holy shit. Um, wow, guys, I gravely apologize. I was following this thing that you see in the um on the live stream. I was and it covered up the live stream that's showing on StreamYard. Once again, YouTube has said fuck you. I'm going to catch up real hard, real fast with so many apologies I can't even stop. All right, Luke, no problem. My internet is messed up also. Hi, Alpine. I wish I'd known you were here. Um, I'm going to have to cut this down to the comments that are directed at me. Alpine says it's kind of hard to hide a tank. Well, no. Jasper Masculine proved it. It's not hard at all. Hi, Troll. I'm sorry. I'm late. Blame the hot tub for being too good. Hey, I totally understand, bro. Hot tubs. That's all you had to say. Yeah. Alpine says, Carrie can't see us. No shit. I don't know what's going on with that chat now. Funny. Um, Apparently Bunny was here. Hi, Leo. Apparently Bunny was here, but I'm not seeing it now. So I'm going to guess that's Buckle Bunny. Good. I'm glad you're feeling better, dear. This goes on to everybody talking to each other because they can't hear from me, or I can't hear from them. I clearly missed something. Troll is talking about bouncing baby boy that I don't understand. Again, a lot of everybody talking to each other while I'm oblivious. I see my comment of 1111 when I was testing to see if it was working. Oops. Leo had to leave. Luke is making fun of me. Don't blame him this time. Alpine really tried to get my attention just now. Okay. See, I'm just going to show this one right there. I'm sorry, guys. I do not know what happened. That should have worked. And then it would be part of the stream. Yeah. Okay, so in Alpine Celery, Buckle was not here. Wow, guys, I don't know what happened there. I am so sorry. This should have worked. I'm going to a few private live streams later to figure it out. That is extremely, extremely embarrassing, guys. I don't know what happened. All right. I'm going to move on to something productive because that wasn't it. Stop sharing. Share screen. Window. Are you kidding me? There it is. Actually showing through this time. Okay. Really hard for you guys to read, and I apologize. Little other provisions, Section 5, exemptions, conditional exemptions. Following categories of persons of carry during such time as said condition exists. All right. We've all got situations in our lives where any rational person would understand, no, you can't do X, Y, or Z unsafe thing. And you're an idiot to try, an idiot to ask you to. Right? So let's get into it. Intoxicated persons. Too drunk to drive, too drunk to carry. Within 100 feet of their home, vehicle, work, residence, other residents. I'm not going to ask you to gun up to go across the street to the Chevron to get cookies and beer. That's ridiculous. Exempt locations, there's 3. I'm going to be going over them later. One of them, airports, is actually an exempt location, and it's an enforceable exemption. The other 2, schools and government buildings, if security is provided only. Specific working conditions. If you work in an environment where carrying a gun is an excessive danger to yourself or others, you're exempt. And maintenance, it's damaged. Talk about that a lot more later on. Okay, first of all, none of these, except for exempt locations, airports, is a mandate. You can elect to do so, you don't have to. You also may have to deal with consequences if you don't. Intoxicated persons, too drive, too drunk to carry. All right. I'm not sure of any state that actually says if you're too drunk to drive, you're too drunk to carry. It probably does exist. I'm just not familiar with it. If you do anyways, and a thing happens, people will look at you and ask, how much did your intoxication contribute to this? That's not a question you really want to be answering. All right. On the other hand, you might be totally golden. You might be able to go out and have a couple of beers and carry with enough of a clear head that the courts afterwards will say, yeah, no, you weren't as drunk as all that. That is a decision you have to make for yourself. Within 100 homes of their home, vehicle, work, residence. All right, this is the one where you probably won't have a whole lot to answer for. For a little while, I was effectively living across the street, a gas station, and I'd go over there and, I'd get coffee or whatever in the morning. You have to gun up to go literally right across the street. Well, cat a corner in my case. So that's not a difference. And that's not to ask you to gun up each time you go to Chevron to get a cup of coffee. That's ridiculous. The exempt locations, 2 of the 3, security has to be provided for it to be an exempt location. Airports, security is provided anyway, but that's not the point. Okay, specific conditions. You have to be able to go into the judge and say, I'm a sewage worker and carrying a gun around makes it excessively dangerous for me. Not for the rest of the world, but for me, because I might get hooked on something. Or I'm a electric line worker, and it's happened to me. I've been shot. I've been the lines. Happens to all of us at some point in our career. Electricity and bullets don't mix. Okay, that one actually has a whole lot more flexibility about what you're going to do. Take the electric utility worker example. He says, Your Honor, the cop's right. I didn't have my gun. I'm an electric utility worker. This is a joke, right? Well, why wasn't it in your truck? Because neighborhood, or I worked sketchy neighborhoods. I didn't even want it in my truck. They might steal my truck, and then they'll steal my gun with it. This has actually happened. An electric utility worker was kidnapped when somebody stole his truck while he was up in the bucket working on the lines. It was one of the most stupid chases ever, because any asshole can just look up and see that the boom is up. How hard is it to know? This guy stole the truck anyway. Now, the electric utility worker managed to get the boom down before he fell out of it, crashed otherwise, but a utility truck running around with the boom way up the hell up in the air got everybody's attention really quickly. That guy was also charged with kidnapping. The degree of exemption you basically give yourself is going to be very subjective to you. But you also have to be able to turn to the judge afterwards if you get that citation and say, yes, Your Honor, and this is why. And the judge has to accept your explanation as well. And maintenance. I make no secret of this. The maintenance is, I refer to it as the hold my guns exemption. All right, I've been there, I've done that. Back in 2003, I turned to Pappa Carey and said, Dad, I need you to take the guns up to Reading. He didn't say even a word for a second, and then, okay. They were gone. An hour later, Dad took time off of work to take the guns away from me. A few months later, I'm in a much, much better place. They came back. Okay. Maintenance. First of all, hold my guns is an order that works with FFL holders to hold guns for people who are in crisis. Big little crisis. Queen crisis. They do not feel like they should have that's fine. I'm totally okay with this. Under the maintenance, all a peace officer can do is say, where is your gun? You say, it's at the gun shop. Do you have a receipt for your gun? If you do, you hand it over. They see, okay, it's your name, serial number, or make and model, or something, and where it is. They can even know this place is notorious for just holding guns for gunsmiths later on, that the guy comes back in later and takes them home anyway. Okay. That's all the officer can ask. They cannot ask what is the nature of the maintenance. don't have your receipt, you're going to have to go into the courthouse and say, Your Honor, my gun was at Joe's gun shop, even if the judge knows what the maintenance matter really was. At Joe's gun shop. Okay, do you have the receipt? Hand the receipt over. It's a small fine. It's a $10 fine because you should have had it with you. With the grace of God, go. You haven't sinned yet. Don't start now. Everything's fine. They're not allowed to ask what is the nature of the maintenance. My AR isn't here. It's not at Dad's either. I have it at a gun shop in California, making it California compliant ready so that I can just put the piece in. So when I cross the border to come see Dad or to go to the lake house or whatever, I don't have to leave it behind. Then when I back the other direction, I'm going to pop that shit out, put it in the pouch, and there you are. I have it. It's ready. I can go back when I need to. But what about me in 2003 when I didn't have them and I knew I should not have them right now? Well, handing them to Papa Carey wouldn't have worked. But I could have taken them to a gun shop that was like 8 blocks away, 10 blocks away. I could have walked there. Not River City. The one down J Street, excuse me. I could have just turned it in and said, hey, I need some work done on my gun. And they say, what kind of work do you need? I need it re-zeroed to no zero. Or just told them some bullshit thing. Or maybe there's just a flat out saying, please hold on for me. Okay, what's wrong with it? It's not the gun, it's me. Okay, we charge $1 a month for that service. I understand, thank you. Just hold on to it for me. Okay, great. See you in a few months. We'll see. They hand you the receipt. You go, you're fine. You're good to go. The maintenance exemption does not allow a peace officer to ask, what is the maintenance issue? And actually, I'm going to go back sooner or later and write it. There's some pretty stiff penalties related to that, but come back to that in a minute. The court cannot ask, what is the maintenance issue? They're not allowed to. I do need to get around to it. If they do ask and can be proven to be asked, or if your employer asks, or anybody else asks, what is your maintenance issue? They could actually be fined. Peace officers and court officers, much more seriously. Your employer asks, actually your employer will probably be in the same capacity. A reporter asks the same capacity, professionals. Another person asks you a just common everyday, and you choose not to answer, and you can prove they asked, they can be fined too. Just not as heavily. I'm thinking $10 fine there. For a peace officer, a court officer, or an employer, $1,000. Because I'm not playing this shit. I do not want them asking. Okay, thank you, Alpine. I appreciate that. Moving on. By the way, for those of you who care and a few who don't, YouTube was telling me nobody was watching. It's part of the reason why I didn't even think to double check the chat. Oops. Anyway, maintenance exemption was written that way, holding my guns in mind. And it was when they were interviewed on Ghost Tactical, 4 months ago? I think it was 4 months ago. And they're talking about what they are and their mission. And I realized, hey, that's a real thing. Well, how do I give somebody an exemption where if they know they're not okay right now, that they can hand their guns in and nobody will ask. Most gun shops are also have gunsmiths, or they have that they work with. That was easy. Just call it a maintenance exemption. I want to emphasize, do not ask somebody what their maintenance exemption is, right? It's safer to ask them why they don't have their gun on them, and they're talking about getting drunk tonight, than it is to ask them about their maintenance exemption. The reason being that their mind might not be quite right yet. They may not be comfortable talking about it, and the fact that you asked will set them off. When I was in that place, I was actually active duty military. A lot of other things being a lot of other things that were going on at the time. I was not allowed to touch any of the unit's weapons in any way, shape, or form. They would not even let me have a letter opener at the time. I was not allowed to carry my multi-tool at the time. The only weapon I had on me or available to me was metal pencils and scissors. Ironically enough, that period in my life cured me of nail biting because I started clipping my nails instead, because the scissors were the only weapon I was allowed to have anywhere near me. I knew I was in a lot better place about 3 months later when they called all hands to clean guns, and I was allowed to help clean the guns. That was just, and I'm sitting here, I think it was I know it was an M9, was the one I happened to be cleaning. I'm sitting there, wow, they're trusting me to clean a gun. Okay, this is a major point for me. 3 months ago, they would not have let me sit here and do this. I must be getting better. I remember I was talking to the doc about that, and he said, "Oh, that's a good sign too." There's something to that effect. I can still remember his name, and I can tell you that he was a Air Force major at the time and a lieutenant colonel later on. And some of my not gun control related writing, science fiction, short stories, I mentioned him by name, literally in full name. And that is exactly the way it is intended to be used. You can't ask about the maintenance. Don't ask about what the maintenance is. If somebody volunteers it, that's a totally separate subject. Just, yeah, well, now they're at the gun shop. Okay. Oh, so are you crazy? Don't do that. Just don't do that. Maybe that is it. Maybe they'll volunteer the information. Maybe they'll say, yeah, me in 2003, I would have said, guys, I turned my guns in yesterday. Why? I realize something's going on that I shouldn't be around them. Carrie, Petty Officer Carrie, Seaman Carrie, thank you for telling me that. Okay, turn 2, go paint the paint locker, whatever it was that my MK2 told me to do at that point. Just real quick, in case there's something else I should really harp on as hard as I did that, No, really not. I think that covers it. All right, brief overview. With malice aforethought, uh, Gavin NEWSOM created the circumstances that allowed the San Jose shooting to happen. It will happen again. I've been here before. I know I've said these words before. With malice aforethought created the circumstances. So the fact that it's happened again shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. All right. He's done it before. It's happened before. So it'll happen again. Don't don't tell me that it's happened before, but it'll never happen again. Under the exact same circumstances. Don't piss on my head and expect me to tell you that it's raining. Right? It's bad enough they're pissing on our heads and telling us it's raining. Now they expect us to believe it, or expect us to say it ourselves. Fuck you. Creepy Joe has ended the Wuhan investigation that Trump started because he does not want us to find out the truth that the virus didn't actually escape from Wuhan. So what he's going to do is sabotage that investigation so that either Wuhan gets blamed anyway, less likely, or that it comes out inconclusive. One way or the other. He's going to make sure that you're staring at China and not at Iran, even though Iran has every intention of killing as many people as they can. And they don't care that their own people die in the process. Iran is not run by sane human beings. It's run by a cult. I so want to dig into this part of the story. How is it that an actual satanic cult, Iran, but that is like an hour-long video in and of itself. All right. Yes, Luke, I can see the chat now. I am so sorry. I am so sorry. All right. And if y'all thought that COVID and the chaos that created is bad, wait until 9017 hits. Just wait. When that hits, all hell will break loose. And when that does, if Joe is still in office, he's going to say, we need more guys. Dude, fuck you. You created the circumstances that created this chaos. And you did it with malice aforethought because you knew it was an inevitable outcome, not a possible outcome, an inevitable outcome. You can't drive through a crowd and say, I didn't realize I was going to hit somebody. And you can't put a crowd of people in the middle of the freeway and say, I didn't realize people were going to get hit. That's not how it works. Okay. Housekeeping issue, guys. I've been meaning to talk about this for the last 2 weeks. Next week, I'm going to be at the lake house. Signal there sometimes, well, signal there sucks. I can't do a live stream from there. I'm going to be doing a 2-hour premiere. I'm going to be recording it tonight, hopefully. I'm going to try to join the chat from the lake house. I can't guarantee, and I'm sorry. It is what it is. Apothecary needs me to help him install the water project. My other brother, the one that didn't die, obviously, had to come to help us with this because we're installing the well and I need the help. Apothecary can't do it. I can't do it by myself. So OAS is here, or is going to be there. Okay. Alpine says, I think Biden just ordered a 90-day investigation into his sea origins. 90-day. Oh, yeah, 90-day investigation. Yeah, I'm not surprised. And at the end of the 90 days, if that's correct, he's brilliant. He set the investigation timeline so short that they can't find anything. And then he can say, we didn't find anything conclusive. Case closed. So yes, next week I'm not going to be here. Be here with you in spirit. Hopefully nothing new will occur in the next 7 days of any great gravitas. Okay, guys, I've got to wrap this one up early because I actually have to hit the road today. The sooner I do, the sooner I get going. And all of a sudden, as Alpine would put it, a man on a horse is really hitting. Well, actually, as Drew would put it. But anyway, I'm going to leave it over about 5 more minutes to see if you guys got some last minute questions now that I can see that you're asking them. No, I'm not happy about that. I'm going to throw out a general request. First of all, share the channel. Most especially, gun control has failed compilation. That's the biggest one. Everything else, if nobody ever heard anything else and just saw that one video, they would understand. Thank you, Alpine. Especially since we're hand digging it. Papa Carey saw something on YouTube about digging a well with a backhoe, and he's going to try and take that on. I saw that same video, and the water was green. I'm not happy. Luke is talking about a new, I assume, gun that he's picking up today. Okay. You know, actually, guys, I think part of that premiere I'm going to put out for next week is going to be the first half of that one live stream that they shut down. You know, the one where I was so pissed. Yeah, well, anyway. All right. I'm thinking that's for today. So, Creepy Joe is in Tehran's pocket. That's it. I'm not even playing games anymore. Haven't been playing games, but Tehran, Iran, is the great and grave danger of this generation. They're worse than the 1940s Germany because they have even less conscience. And it's actually tied directly to 1940s Germany. Gun control in any shape or form, as it exists now at least, is an attempt to cause a mass shooting. San Jose was not a mass shooting. It was a workplace shooting, which is two very different dynamics. Where mass shooting is random. Targets are completely random. You don't know them. They don't know you. There's literally no connection here. Workplace shooting is a workplace. You know them. You have some sort of beef with them. But that's how the media lies. Don't call it what it is. Call it what you want people. and keep calm and manage to carry on.